I used to think I was invisible, not in a dramatic way, just quietly, slowly. Like one day, you're living your life, and then months go by, and you realize no one really looks at you anymore. Not your wife, not your kid, not even yourself. But that night, the night my son looked at me the way he did, that was the moment everything fell apart. You ever been in a room full of people and still felt completely alone? Yeah, that's what this story's about. And it's not pretty, but it's real. So, before we go on, let me ask you something. If the person you love stopped noticing you, would you fight for them? Or would you go looking for someone else to notice you? Let me know down in the comments. And if you've ever been through something like this, you're not alone. Subscribe if you want more raw, true stories, ones that don't sugarcoat anything. Alright, let's go back. It was a Tuesday night, just one of those regular, forgettable nights. I walked into the house after work, expecting noise, maybe dinner on the stove, something, anything. But the house was dead quiet. No laughter, no music, no "hey babe, how was your day?" Just silence. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter. That sound was louder than it should have been. There was a takeout box sitting there with my name scribbled on it like an afterthought. It was cold, not just the food, everything. I walked to the bedroom. There she was, Alexis, my wife. Her laptop was glowing in the dark like some kind of portal. She was typing furiously, didn't even look up when I leaned in the doorway. "Did you eat already?" I asked. She barely moved. "Yeah, sorry. Got caught up with Kristen's presentation. It's a mess." I nodded. "No, it's fine. I'll warm something up." I stood there for a few seconds, hoping maybe she'd ask how my day was, or even just smile. Nothing. Back in the kitchen, I sat down alone and picked at the food. It wasn't even the dinner. It was just this feeling, like I wasn't in my life anymore. Like I was watching someone else live it for me. We used to talk for hours, me and Alexis. We used to dance in the kitchen while waiting for the rice to boil. Now we barely looked at each other. Later that night, I was on the couch. The TV was on, but I wasn't really watching. Alexis had passed out in the bedroom, her laptop still open, blinking with unread messages. I didn't even notice Gabriel, our 10-year-old son, until he was right next to me. He looked up at me with that quiet, serious face he gets sometimes, and asked, "Dad, can I sleep in your room tonight?" I blinked. "Yeah, bud, of course." He didn't say why, but I knew. Even at 10, he could feel it. That cold tension in the house that nobody wanted to talk about. After I tucked him in, I couldn't sleep, so I did something I hadn't done in a while. I opened my phone and found an old video, one of those random home clips. We were at the park. Alexis was laughing, chasing Gabriel around with a water bottle. I was filming and cracking jokes. The sun was out. We looked so alive. And now, I sat there in the dark with that video glowing in my hands and thought, when did we lose all that? When did Alexis stop looking at me like I mattered? And yeah, I missed her. God, I missed her. Not just the person. The way she used to make me feel. It wasn't that I wanted someone new. I just wanted to feel seen. That's when I saw the message, right there on my screen, lighting up like it was meant to find me in that moment. Rebecca Wheeler. "Hey, remember me?" My stomach dropped. Of course I remembered her. And that message was the beginning of everything I wasn't ready for. She wasn't just from my past. She knew things I'd forgotten about myself. Don't go anywhere. What would you have done if you got that message? Be honest. Drop it in the comments. Like if you've ever felt invisible. Subscribe for more stories like this. I didn't answer Rebecca's message right away. I just stared at it for a while, thumb hovering over the screen, like it was radioactive or something. "Hey, remember me?" Of course I remembered her. How could I not? She was the kind of girl who made everything around her feel like summer, even in the middle of winter. She wasn't just part of my past. She was there before everything got complicated. Back when life was simple. Before marriage became routine. Before love turned into logistics. But still, I put my phone down. I told myself I wouldn't reply. And for a couple days, I didn't. Alexis barely noticed. She was swamped with work, always typing, always answering someone else's problem, always unavailable. One night, I stood behind her as she sat at her desk. I watched the way her shoulders tensed, the way she chewed the inside of her cheek when she was stressed. Little things I used to find beautiful, things I hadn't seen in so long. I placed a hand on her shoulder, light, just to say, "I'm here." She flinched. "I'm working," she muttered, without even turning around. I pulled my hand back like I'd touched fire. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up, walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and my phone lit up on the counter. Rebecca Wheeler, still awake. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that, but I did. The next morning, I told Alexis I was heading into work early. I wasn't. I met Rebecca at a small coffee shop on the edge of town. Neutral ground, no intentions, no plans, just curiosity. She hadn't changed much. Different haircut, new tattoo peeking out from under her sleeve. But her eyes, same as they were back then. Kind, sharp, knowing. "Wow," she said with a smile. "You look like someone who hasn't had a full night's sleep in about a decade." I laughed, actually laughed. For the first time in weeks, she sipped her coffee. "You used to laugh like that all the time. What happened to that guy?" I shrugged. "He grew up." She tilted her head. "No, he disappeared. We talked for over an hour, about life, work, kids." She'd gone through a divorce 2 years ago, caught her husband cheating with someone half her age, said she stayed angry for 6 months straight, then finally started building herself back. I told her about Gabriel, about how Alexis and I barely talked anymore. I left out the worst parts, of course. I made it sound cleaner than it was. She didn't push, she just listened. And let me tell you something, when you're starving for connection, being seen like that, it's like a drug. Over the next few weeks, we kept talking. Nothing physical, nothing inappropriate, just texts here and there, coffee once a week, a hug goodbye. It felt harmless. I told myself it was harmless, but I started looking forward to those messages more than anything else in my day. And that's when I should have known. At home, things with Alexis were colder than ever. We had dinner in silence, the kind where the clinking of forks sounds like thunder. I'd ask about her day. She'd say busy. I'd ask if she wanted to do something this weekend. She'd say, maybe. I'm tired. And every time Gabriel tried to speak, one of us would interrupt or just not respond fast enough. He started eating dinner with his headphones on. One night, I got home late from work, really late. Alexis was already in bed. The light from her laptop was still glowing, even though her eyes were closed. I stood in the doorway, just watching her sleep. She looked so peaceful, so far away. I whispered, "Do you even see me anymore?" She didn't answer. She didn't hear. I walked out, quietly shutting the door behind me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Rebecca, can't sleep, want to talk." That was the first night I stayed out. Nothing happened. No kiss, no touching, just a parked car. 2 people talking under streetlights like teenagers. But in my heart, something had already shifted. She leaned her head against the window and said, "You ever wonder if you ended up with the wrong person?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know. Here's the thing, no one tells you about emotional cheating. It doesn't start with lust, it starts with loneliness. You don't go looking for someone to fall into. You just want to feel alive again, to feel like you matter. And before you know it, someone who shouldn't be important is. A few days later, we were at a school event. Gabriel was up on stage reading a poem he wrote. His voice cracked halfway through, but he kept going. Alexis barely looked up from her phone. I glanced over at her, then back at our son, and something in me snapped. That night, I didn't text Rebecca. I called her. I told myself it was just one call, but in my gut, I knew what I was doing. I was opening a door that would be really, really hard to close. People always think cheating starts with a kiss, but for me, it started in a parking lot, with rain tapping the roof, and silence filling the space between 2 people who knew they were standing way too close to the edge. It had been 2 weeks since that school event, since the look on Gabriel's face as he stood alone on that stage, stuck with me like a thorn. I couldn't pull out, I couldn't get it out of my head. The way Alexis scrolled through emails, while our son poured his little heart into every shaky word. She didn't even clap. That night, I told Rebecca I didn't want to talk anymore. Told her I needed to pull away. She didn't fight me. She just said, "Okay, but if you ever need someone to see you again, I'll still be here." That should have been the end. It wasn't. A few nights later, I came home late. Dinner was cold again. Alexis had crashed on the couch, with the TV still on, remote balanced on her chest, her phone buzzing on the armrest. I didn't even bother waking her. I stood there for a second, watching her sleep, and then something inside me cracked. Again, I needed air. I grabbed my coat, walked out into the garage, and sat in the car, didn't even turn it on, just sat there, scrolling, and there she was, Rebecca Wheeler. Her name lit up like some kind of sign. I opened our old thread, just looked at it. No typing, no sending, just remembering. I don't know what made me drive there that night. I really don't. Maybe I was hoping she wouldn't open the door. But she did. It was late. Rain was falling steady by then. The streets looked silver in the glow of the porch light. Rebecca stood there barefoot, in an old hoodie, and said, "You look like hell." I laughed, but it felt more like a wince. Yeah, probably. She stepped aside. I walked in. We didn't touch, not at first. We just sat on her couch, and I told her things I hadn't told anyone, not even myself, about how lonely I felt, about how I missed being important to someone, about how every room in my house felt like a graveyard of old conversations. She didn't interrupt, she didn't judge, she just looked at me, like I mattered, like I was seen again. Then it happened. We both reached for the same coffee mug on the table, an old nervous habit, and our hands touched, just that. But that moment, it hung in the air like electricity. She looked up, I looked back. No words, and then she kissed me. It wasn't heated, it wasn't desperate, it was slow, gentle, sad, and I kissed her back. The second it ended, I pulled away, stood up, stepped back, like I'd just stepped off a cliff. I couldn't even look at her. "I can't do this," I whispered. "I know," she said, almost smiling. "You're still trying to be the good guy." I didn't answer. I just left. Back in the car, I sat there with my forehead against the steering wheel, heart pounding, like I'd just run a marathon. I wanted to scream, or cry, or throw my phone out the window, but I didn't do any of that. I drove home. The house was still quiet when I got there. Gabriel's bedroom door was closed. Alexis was still on the couch, now curled up with a blanket, completely unaware that her husband had just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. I walked into the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. "You're a good man," I said out loud, like if I said it enough, it would make it true again. But I didn't believe it. Here's the thing nobody talks about with infidelity. It doesn't start with someone else's body. It starts when you stop feeling like you matter in your own life. And once you feel that kind of hunger, that ache to be noticed, touched, wanted, it takes over everything. The next morning, Gabriel avoided eye contact. He didn't say much at breakfast, didn't hug me goodbye, like he usually did. I didn't think much of it at the time. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that he had gotten up that night. He saw me come home, wet from the rain, shaking, haunted, and he saw the look in my eyes when I stepped inside. That look, it said everything. People like to say, the past is the past, but sometimes, the past moves in right down the street and starts showing up like a memory that refuses to stay buried. A few days after the kiss, I told Rebecca we couldn't talk anymore. I said it clearly, straight, no room for confusion. She didn't fight it. She just nodded and said, "You don't owe me an explanation, but if you ever need a real friend, someone who remembers who you used to be, I'm around." Then she gave me this soft little half smile, one that didn't say goodbye. It said, "I'll see you again." And of course, I did. It started small, harmless, a message on a Thursday. "You'll never guess what I found. Photos from college. Wanna feel 22 again?" For a minute, I ignored it. Then another a few days later. "I'm at Brews and Beans. The coffee still sucks, but the muffins, life-changing." This time, I replied, "Save me one." We met at that little corner cafe we used to go to after class. The second I walked in, it felt like stepping into a different life. She was sitting by the window, waving like we hadn't kissed, like we hadn't crossed a line. She made it easy to pretend. That was the dangerous part. We talked for over an hour, about stupid things, old professors, bad haircuts. She showed me a photo of us, me, her, and Alexis, arm in arm, drunk on cheap wine, under the campus clock tower. And for a second, it all came rushing back. Those years, when everything was still in front of us, before marriages, before mortgages, before mistakes. She looked at me across the table, and said softly, "You don't smile with your eyes anymore." That line hit harder than I expected. "I'm just tired," I said, brushing it off. Rebecca tilted her head, sipping her coffee. "No, Sergio, you're numb. That's worse." We stepped outside to say goodbye, and it was raining again. Light, steady. She pulled her hood up. I didn't. Our hands brushed for half a second. Neither of us pulled away. And again, nothing happened. And again, it meant everything. I told Alexis I was at a late meeting. I even took a picture of a whiteboard to make it believable. When I got home, she barely looked up. "Long day?" she asked, eyes still on her laptop. "Yeah," I said. "You?" "Same." That was it. That was our marriage, boiled down to one-word answers and fake smiles. That night, I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I got here. I wasn't chasing passion. I wasn't trying to destroy anything. I just wanted to feel something again. The next few days blurred. Rebecca and I texted at night, mostly jokes, music recs, half-formed thoughts, little things I used to send to Alexis before the silence crept in. One night, I told her I'd been having trouble sleeping. She sent back, "Maybe it's because you're lying next to someone who doesn't see you." I didn't respond, because she was right. We met again, this time at a bookstore. She handed me a dog-eared novel and said, "You used to say you wanted to write one of these." "I still do," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "Then what are you waiting for?" I didn't have an answer, because the truth was, I'd stopped dreaming, stopped wanting anything that felt impossible. As we browsed the shelves, our fingers touched again, a tiny stupid moment. But it lingered, and this time, when I looked up, she didn't look away, and neither did I. She remembered things about me I had forgotten myself, not just the dreams I let go of, but the kind of man I used to be, before I let the quiet eat me alive. Back home, things were getting harder to fake. Gabriel had started watching me differently, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Alexis, she was still too deep in work to notice, or maybe she did notice, and just didn't want to deal with it. Either way, the distance between us was now a canyon, and I was standing on the edge. One night, Alexis finally looked at me during dinner, really looked at me. "You seem distracted lately," she said. I froze, spoon halfway to my mouth. "Just work." I lied. She nodded. "Right." And just like that, the moment passed. But later that night, as I sat alone in the garage, Rebecca texted, "I keep thinking about that bookstore. You looked alive in there." I stared at the message for a long time, and just as I was about to reply, I felt it, that eerie feeling, the sense that someone was behind me. I turned, and there he was, Gabriel, standing in the doorway of the garage. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me, right in the eyes, and walked away. That one look, it made my stomach drop, because I didn't know how much he'd seen, or how long he'd been standing there.
You know that moment, right after a mistake, where your heart drops into your stomach, and you wish more than anything you could just rewind time? Yeah, that was me, standing in the garage, watching my son walk away. No words, no questions, just that look. And it hit me harder than any slap ever could. That kiss with Rebecca had already happened. That line had already been crossed. It wasn't fire. It wasn't passion. It was ache. Two people in pain, looking for warmth, in the middle of a cold, endless winter. And the second our lips touched, I felt something inside me break wide open. Not joy, not relief, but guilt, the kind that rots you from the inside out. I pulled away instantly. "I can't," I said, shaking my head like I could undo what had just happened. "I can't do this." Rebecca didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just whispered, "I know." That hurt more than anything, because part of me wished she had gotten angry, or begged, or thrown something.
Anything but that soft, sad understanding. The drive home felt longer than it ever had. Rain poured so hard, I couldn't see the road at times. Wipers working overtime, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. I kept replaying it over and over in my head. The kiss, the look on Rebecca's face, the quiet between us. I should have known better. I did know better, but I went anyway. When I walked into the house, dripping wet, jacket clinging to me like shame, the air inside felt heavier than usual. I was halfway through peeling off my coat when I saw him, Gabriel, just standing at the top of the stairs, watching, still, quiet. His eyes, dark, unreadable, met mine for half a second, and then he turned and walked back to his room. He didn't ask me where I'd been, didn't say goodnight, didn't even close the door, just left it open like a wound. I stood in the hallway for a full minute, frozen, because in that moment, I wasn't a husband, I wasn't a man, I wasn't even a father, I was lost. The next morning, the silence at breakfast felt louder than usual. Alexis stirred her coffee like it had insulted her. Gabriel picked at his cereal, headphones in. No one spoke. The whole kitchen felt like it was holding its breath. I tried to say something to break the tension. So, anyone want to go out this weekend? Maybe the movies. Gabriel didn't look up. Alexis didn't answer. Later that afternoon, I pulled Gabriel aside. Hey, you okay? He shrugged. Yeah, I knelt down. If there's something bothering you, you can tell me, always. He looked at me finally, and asked the one question I wasn't ready for. Do you love Mom? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Not yes, not no, not even I don't know, just silence. He nodded, like that told him everything, then walked away again. That night, I couldn't stop pacing. I didn't call Rebecca. I didn't text. I just sat in the garage, staring at the concrete floor like it could give me answers. The guilt was thick. Every time I blinked, I saw Gabriel's face, his eyes, that question, do you love Mom? And then the knock came. 3 slow knocks on the front door. I wiped my face, tried to steady my breathing. When I opened it, she was standing there. Judith Perkins, Alexis's old friend, one of those neighbors who always seemed to just be around, harmless, quiet, but always watching. She smiled, polite, measured, held a pie in her hands, like she was straight out of a 1950s commercial. Hi Sergio, she said cheerfully. I was baking this morning, and thought I'd drop something by. Is Alexis home? Before I could answer, she stepped inside, and then, she said it, casual, almost like a joke. You've been out late a lot lately. Hope you're not getting into trouble. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. My blood went cold. Alexis looked up from the couch, sensing the shift. Judith kept going, still sweet on the outside. I mean, I keep seeing your car down by the coffee shop after 9. That little place near Rebecca's. Right. Silence. Then she turned to Alexis. You remember Rebecca Wheeler? From college. Alexis stared at her. No blink, no expression, just processing. Judith's voice stayed light, but there was venom hiding in every word. She moved back recently, didn't she? I watched Alexis's face harden, like she'd just been slapped without warning. Yeah, she said finally. I remember Rebecca. Judith smiled again, then left the pie on the counter. Well, just wanted to say hello. You two take care. Okay. And just like that, she walked out. That wasn't the explosion. That was the spark. But everyone in the room knew. The fire was coming. I always thought the worst part of cheating would be the guilt, the shame, the secrecy. But I was wrong. The worst part is being seen. Not by your spouse, not even by the person you betrayed them with, but by your child. By the person who looks at you like you hang the moon, and suddenly doesn't know who you are anymore. After Judith's visit, the house felt like it had a pulse, like something alive was crawling through the walls, waiting to strike. Alexis didn't say anything at first. She didn't explode, didn't accuse me, didn't even look upset. That silence, it was worse than screaming. It was strategy. The next morning, she was up early, dressed, hair done, calm. She poured coffee like everything was normal, like the day before hadn't happened. "Hey," she said, setting a mug in front of me. "Can I ask you something?" My stomach flipped. "Surely." She leaned on the counter. "You've seen Rebecca, right?" My throat tightened. What do you mean?" "I mean, Judith mentioned something about you two meeting up, said she saw your car." I forced a laugh. "Oh, that. No. I mean, yeah. I saw her once, just bumped into her. That's all." She nodded, smiled, took a sip of her coffee. "Okay. Just okay. No follow-up. No confrontation. Just that quiet little okay that told me she didn't believe a damn word I'd said." What I didn't see was Gabriel, standing at the top of the stairs again, listening, hearing every lie I told his mother. That look he gave me days earlier, the one that chilled me. I saw it again when I walked past him in the hallway. This time, it was sharper, like something had clicked in his mind. I stayed late at work that night, or at least I pretended to. I drove around, parked in random spots, tried to find silence, in places that wouldn't judge me. When I finally pulled into the driveway, the house was dark, except for the garage. The light was on, and Gabriel was sitting there, in the same spot I always went to be alone. He didn't look up when I walked in, didn't say anything, just sat there, swinging his legs over the edge of the workbench, fingers drumming softly against the wood. I stood for a second, unsure what to say. "Hey bud, what are you doing out here?" Still quiet. "Then I saw you." My breath caught. He finally looked at me. "I saw you with her." Silence filled the garage like a storm cloud. Thick, heavy, ready to burst. "I don't know who she is," he continued. "But it wasn't Mom." I sat down slowly on the floor, across from him. The words wouldn't come. "I didn't tell her," he said. "But you did." I blinked. "What?" "You lied. This morning. I heard you." I opened my mouth, closed it. What could I even say to that? This was the moment. The moment you prepare for in your nightmares. The moment your child stops seeing you as a superhero and starts seeing you as just a person. Broken. Human. "I'm sorry," I finally said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "I made a mistake." Gabriel looked down at his shoes. "Why'd you do it?" Tears welled in my eyes. "I don't know," I said. "I was lonely. I felt like no one saw me anymore. And then someone did. And I let that mean too much." He looked up again, angry now, hurt. "But I saw you. I always saw you." That broke me. Completely. I covered my face and cried. Right there, on the cold garage floor. For the first time in years. Not quiet, dignified tears. Real ones. Ugly, shaking, raw. "I'm sorry," I choked. "I'm so sorry, Gabriel. You didn't deserve any of this. Neither did your mom." He didn't say anything else. But after a few minutes, he walked over and sat beside me. Didn't touch me. Just sat. And somehow, that hurt even more than if he had walked away. Later that night, Alexis knocked on the garage door. When I opened it, her eyes were puffy, but her face was calm. "We need to talk," she said. "Yeah," I replied, voice hoarse. "We do." She looked past me and saw Gabriel sitting behind me on the bench. She nodded, once. "Tomorrow." Then she turned and went back inside. I thought the truth would set me free. But all it did was show me who I really was. Not a villain, not a victim, just a man who got lost and was finally being seen for everything he was and everything he wasn't. The morning after Gabriel confronted me, everything felt still, not peaceful, just still, like the air before a tornado touches down. Alexis didn't speak to me at breakfast, didn't ask questions, didn't make demands, but that silence, it was loaded. That evening, she came into the garage, same spot where Gabriel and I had sat the night before. She didn't sit, she just stood in the doorway. "I need you to tell me the truth." I looked up from the floor, my back against the work this time. "I've been seeing Rebecca," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, seeing?" "We've talked, met up, more than once." It was emotional at first. I was lonely, and I felt invisible. I watched her jaw clench. She didn't flinch, didn't cry. And then, I hesitated, swallowed hard. There was a kiss. Silence. Alexis took a deep breath. And then I figured. That surprised me. But then she said something that hit me like a punch to the chest. You don't kiss someone you don't want to leave me for. I started to speak, to deny it, defend it, explain. But she cut me off. You think you were the only one feeling alone in this house. I blinked. She walked further into the garage, arms crossed. Bradley, from my team. We've been working late. A lot. I told myself it was nothing. Just someone who got me, who listened. I felt my gut twist. You're saying you. No, she said quickly. Not like that. Nothing physical. But don't stand there and act like you were the only one starving. She finally sat down. I thought you stopped looking at me the way you used to, she said, voice cracking for the first time. You stopped trying. You just faded. I nodded. Yeah, I did. We sat in silence for a while. No yelling, no accusations, just two people, surrounded by the wreckage of everything they didn't say for years. I think we should separate, she finally said. I nodded again, not because I didn't want to fight for her, but because for once, we were actually telling the truth, and it hurt. But it was honest. It wasn't the affair that broke us. It was all the things we swallowed down, all the nights we chose silence over honesty, politeness over pain. That's what killed the love. 2 weeks later, I packed a bag, moved into a small apartment across town. Rebecca texted me once, just one line. I hope you find what you're looking for. I didn't respond. She wasn't the villain. She wasn't the reason this fell apart. She was just a mirror. Gabriel stayed with Alexis. It made sense. Stability. Familiar routines. I saw him every other weekend. It wasn't perfect, but we were trying. And for the first time in years, trying actually meant something. Some nights I cried. Some nights I didn't sleep. Some nights I walked around my tiny apartment, wondering if I'd just ruined the one thing I was supposed to protect. But other nights, I sat down, picked up a pen, started writing again, and for the first time in forever, I felt like I had something to say. A year passed. It was a Thursday. Cool, quiet evening. Gabriel had a school play. I walked in 5 minutes early, found a seat near the back. A few moments later, Alexis arrived. She sat 3 rows ahead of me. She didn't turn around, but she knew I was there. And when the lights dimmed, she tilted her head slightly, just enough for me to see her profile. And then just once, she nodded. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just recognition of the pain, the growth, the fact that we'd survived what most people wouldn't. Gabriel walked out onto the stage, braver, taller. He didn't look for either of us in the crowd, because he knew we were both there. And that was enough. The truth wasn't what ruined everything. The silence was. Infidelity isn't always about desire. Sometimes it's just desperation. To feel something. To feel seen. But trust me, the cost. It's never worth it. So talk. While you still have time. What would you do if your child saw your worst mistake? Would you break? Would you lie? Would you face it? Tell me in the comments below. This story isn't just mine. It could be any of us. And if it made you feel something, anything, hit that like button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe. Because these aren't just stories. They're reminders that we're all human, flawed, messy, trying. And sometimes, just trying, is where the real healing begins.